Welcome back to the big issue, and a lot of messages this morning on this topic. We've had round one. You've heard from Honorable Mercer, Honorable Inusah Fuseini, Franklin Casely-Hayford this year. He's late, so I'm going to skip him for a bit and then get him to end the conversation. So I'll go to Honorable Mercer for rebuttals, and then Honorable Inusah as well.
Well, they're not real rebuttals.
He has a lot of points
except that,
there.
yes,
but I'm going to add a few things to the conversation as well, because I'm introducing the re-registration of SIM cards into this phase, because that was also another directive that came through. Starting from January 2020, we are supposed to re-register our SIM cards. A lot of people have also said, really, it's not necessary. Again, we've heard Honorable Fuseini say it's not something. Just get those who have not registered to re-register.
But how do you make that
audit the system? We'll get there. Let me read a couple of messages. Prince Henry Koforidua says, good morning, Godfred. To your panelists, the Minister of Communications and the government, if they think that, this is for the Minister of Communications and the government, if they think the talk tax is making them unpopular, they should just abolish it, as they did to the luxury vehicle tax. We're promised a move from taxation to production. So what is it with all these new taxes? They should know that whenever I buy credit and I'm being taxed, I look at my voter's ID and smile. That 2020 is just around the corner. Okay, somebody's taking solace in his voter ID card. Good morning, City. Please, what difference does it make if you're asking the communications providers to cease displaying the tax components while they still deduct the same tax? Question is, the government is too concerned about its dented popularity with the citizens. This is coming from Jones Adobo from La. Let me see. Citizen Francis says these telcos are really milking us like parasites. Where in this part of the world will this happen? The Ministry of Communications must take them on and ensure that the right things are done. The CST is a talk tax for God's sake. So until I talk with my airtime, you should not deduct upfront from me. Okay. So more coming in. Good morning, Godfred and your panelists. Thank God you have two lawyers in the studio this morning. I have a question. I have a problem. My Vodafone Red expired on the 14th of October with over 300 minutes that morning. By midday, I had 0 left, so I recharged with 20 Ghana cedis, and my balance was 18 cedis, 20 pesos. So I added 10 cedis, and my Red was immediately renewed with a balance in my account of 7 cedis, 89 pesos. This balance kept reducing every day. I just checked it, and it's 7 cedis. Meanwhile, I have a VF of 1,077 minutes. Local calls of 145 minutes, internet of 398 megabytes. I've never borrowed credit. Please advise me. Your problem is quite complicated.
You should write to Nanama.
That's not fair, Sydney.
That's a good one. Nanama will advise you. The daily graphic on the mirror.
Cudjoe seems to be having a different experience. Cudjoe said, I just recharged my Vodafone credit this morning and I received all 5 CDs. Has it been reversed already? Honorable Mercer, Kwame from Pillar 2 says, KFC is a billed service. Yet you pay your taxes on the meal before you get served. There's something in the word prepaid service. So that is for you. On Twitter, Honorable Inusah is quite popular on Twitter. A few of his constituents are sending us messages. Yakubu Sheni, tweeting on at Baba Musheni, says, before the 9% CST, there was an existing 6%, which was being absorbed by the telcos. Why are we the customers
absorbing it?
Why were they
absorbing
They were not absorbing it.
Absolutely. They never absorbed
Who were paying it?
It was okay. So you were not absorbing. You were paying. They were just
it's a consumer tax.
That you were not paying it. That is all. So I guess since the question is answered, I don't have to read the rest of your message. But good morning, and it says a good morning to my MP, Honorable Inusah.
Thank you.
Anas is me. Tweeting on that, Azoska I am says, Godfred, let me add to Honorable Inusah's list. When you buy ECG credit, are you taxed when you buy it or when you use it? Government has contradicted itself within 1 week. Has contradicted itself a lot within this 1 week. Abdallah Redwan says, if taxation without consent is no robbery, then any bunch of robbers have only to declare themselves government and all their robbery is legalized. That is a quote that he has sent to us. So keep the messages coming in on WhatsApp 0549 986 996 and on Twitter at 6973 or at eSportsman hashtag the big issue. Honorable Mercer, the points you wanted to make, and then let's add this re-registration of SIM cards that has come in.
You see, I don't think that governments have sought to brand the telcos as thieves. Truth of the matter is, there was a need for us to monitor and know actually what it is that government was generating from VAT, CST, and all the related taxes. And so, and of course, the international incoming traffic as well. So our friends started with GVG, which was doing the international incoming traffic monitoring. And then subsequently, Suba Info was doing the monitoring of the VAT and CST. Subsequently, there was some AfriWave that was brought in to do the common platform. Was it? No, the Interconnect.
In fact,
And then subsequently, there was an attempt to consolidate all of that with the Kelny GVG thing. So I don't think that is as a result of anybody wanting to brand telcos thieves. Government necessarily felt the need for us to monitor and know exactly what it is that was coming in as taxes.
Yeah.
But you see, all this attempt to define what prepaid is and whether the taxes are charged at the point of purchase of the SIM card or upon consumption is the usual politicking.
That's
Really.
how you see it.
That's how I see it. Because you see, what are the real facts? Yes, these are taxes that have been approved by Parliament that the telcos are agents who are supposed to collect on behalf of the state. As far as I'm concerned, consumption tax means consumption tax. If I buy petrol from the filling station, why? At what point am I consuming it? It's not when it's put in my vehicle.
Yeah,
so I pay the tax.
I pay the tax.
But I'm saying, with respect to this, in any event, there are no postpaid customers on purchasing fuel from fuel station. Okay, you just buy it and take it away. How you consume it is nobody's business. With respect to telephone usage, you only deposit your money with the telco and consume it as and when. If you make 2 minutes phone call, they charge you. Is that not what happens? So I'm saying that it is only at that point that you can consume or you can charge a tax on. Okay, and that's the position that the ministry has taken and has communicated to the telcos to do, as they were doing in the past with respect to VAT and the CST prior to 1st October 2019. So my friend Inusah can redefine it all he wants, but the facts are facts, as they are. Now, with respect to this mobile
SIM card
registration, I mean, let's be honest. You can drive down the road and get a pre-registered SIM card by the roadside to buy.
Really?
Absolutely. Okay. So I knew that we're going to get to the point where, because clearly regulation had failed, people who were paying to ensure that the telcos did the right thing went to sleep. So we're going to get to the point where we would have to re-register the number again. I've registered my SIM card. I have a means of checking. But if the intent was to ensure that crime and other related activities were prevented through SIM card registration, and people have pre-registered SIM cards on the market, clearly that purpose would be defeated. And so if we have to ensure that that system is in place, that we can track and monitor and tie a SIM card to an individual or a corporate body, then it's important that we do it and ensure and tax the regulators that this time around, okay, they won't go to sleep and ensure that everybody who registers is actually the person who owns the SIM card, and that we're not going to have a regime where pre-registered SIM cards will exist, and that if the telcos allow that to happen, appropriate sanctions ought to be applied to them.
Okay. Honorable Inusah.
Well, in fact, I wouldn't have spoken on the CST in connection with fuel, but maybe Egyapa will want to know that even with OMCs, oil marketing companies, when they are loaded, when the tank loads, even before the fuel is discharged at the filling station, tax is paid on it. Because that's the easiest way for revenue authorities to collect their tax. Not even when they put the fuel into your tank. The OFC bears the tax and then before they collect. So consumption, it's about collection of the tax. And Caesar will tell you why it's important to put in mechanisms to ensure that people pay the tax without feeling it, because they will oppose it. That's why it was said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. Because people will oppose the tax anyway. Especially when they don't see any improvement in their living conditions. They will oppose it.
From what I hear, it looks like nobody is saying this, but maybe that point about leaving this to the GRA really is what should have happened.
That's what I said it. That's what should have happened. So that VRA will tell them exactly how we want the tax to be collected. But not the minister to take a confrontational stance against the telecos. For SIM card registration, when you look at Europe, various countries within Europe have different systems. Mm-hmm. You buy your SIM card in Britain, you don't register. But who dare you go commit a crime with a telephone, mobile phone? They have a system that can track you. If you go to Belgium, you have to find a way to register your SIM card because that's the system they operate. Or France, you have to register it. And so, what our concern is, when we're doing the national identification thing, we thought that, look, that was a good platform for us to couple whatever we're doing. After all, we're collecting information. Mm-hmm. So you could simply have asked any telephone number, if available. Telephone number, if available. Then you provide your telephone number. Then you input it. It becomes part of your records. Your ID, after all, your telephone number is a PIN, personal identification number. So when you give your telephone number and it's inputted as part of your...
but are you participating in the national identification?
I don't want any diversion.
Because you encourage your supporters and your members not to register.
I don't want diversion.
So how are we going to get... Hey, you see?
I don't know what Mercer is doing mischievous this morning. I don't know this. I'll proceed.
So all that we are saying is that you say people, when you are managing people, it's really a very difficult and complex exercise. So you must, at all material times that you are managing people, provide simple strategies for them to go through the exercise without necessarily feeling the burden. So people are queuing to register on the national ID card. They will have to come back and queue again for a SIM card. People are queuing to register on the voter, to be on the voters register. They'll come back and queue again. Why couldn't we just consolidate the processes? And it can be done. At the point, okay, so why is it that in Ghana you can buy a SIM card from a table? Why is that? Other places, there are licensed shops. When you want registration, it's okay. So approach that shop, provide your identity, passport number.
Yeah, I've always found that strange because, in Kenya, I can't even load my airtime without showing my passport.
A passport. You understand? So why?
Unless I'm using M-Pesa.
Why don't we tackle
but physically, if you're using mobile money, it's fine. But because your local money is tagged. Yeah. But if you are purchasing it physically, you have to show some form of ID.
To go and buy the card, the recharge card, you have to show an identity. Yeah. You have to show before they sell it to you. Okay? Now, but we have allowed, even when I was at the law school back then, we saw people carrying SIM cards in pants, selling in the market. So why have we allowed that in our system? And then we come back and give problems to ourselves.
But they are trying to fix it.
Why do we create it before we fix it?
Well, they say don't let perfect get in the way of good.
Just like you have directed that, don't show us the 3% increase or a 50% increase. Just direct that the telecos designate special shops where you can obtain SIM cards. And then tell the telecos what they have to take before selling out the SIM card. And then they can then input it into their computer. Then you tag their computer with your national cyber security network. And then you have the information. So what is the problem? Is this difficult to do?
You make it sound quite easy.
It is very easy.
Franklin.
Well, I guess we love queues. I think this is regulation gone bad. I mean, I remember when this conversation began, we were worried that the rationale for registering SIM cards was obviously probably far-fetched. But of course, the governments made the advocacy point that, look, we are living in dangerous times and that people are prone to commit all manner of crimes using the cellular networks. So it's important to register people. And of course, I thought reason prevailed because it's important to do that. For some reason, I think we slept on the job. And now we have to come back and do re-registration. I think, look, there's been, I'm sure, close to, if not 60, 70% of Ghanaians, or probably more, registered. And I remember the telcos, I remember Airtel sometime, not too long ago, would call to verify if the number belonged to you. We can start from that angle so that we know exactly those who are being targeted, those who are now buying SIM cards that are not registered. They should go and regularize what they have to do. I think it's better than having this whole enterprise of re-registration again with people queuing. You see, then again, you are going to an election year. You probably don't want to annoy people. This is advice, free advice of the government. I think the multiplicity of registration, identity collection, it's becoming too much. And it's all our fault, by the way. But I don't think you want to burden everybody else. Unless I did not understand the directive, that those who already registered properly should not go and re-register again. Otherwise, I'm looking beyond the rationale of just catching thieves. I want to know who has this project to go and re-register people. I don't understand. Because I would have thought that, I'm sure that more than 70% of people actually must have registered. And the telcos did a good job following up. MTN did with me. Airtel did with me. I'm sure those on Vodafone would testify as well. Calling people to make sure that this... So it's an ongoing exercise. So we should start from ascertaining those numbers that are already in the system. And then say that those who procure DS without proper registration should go and register.
But then the criminal elements will not go, will they?
Yeah, but then they block those numbers out. I don't think you need to go and queue again. You see, that's why I'm tempted to think that, and I hardly do vested interest analysis. I don't like that because that's imputing all manner of motives. I don't like to do that. But whose interest is it that we should go and re-register again? I don't know. It's chaotic. I don't think that is what it is really. I'm sure the minister wants to solidify her stance. The ministry wants to solidify its stance that cybersecurity is an important item. It's an important project that we need to prosecute. And maybe this is being part of the process. But to be fair, let's allow the certification of numbers that already are in the system. And then those who haven't done this, the call should be to them to go and rectify that. And the telcos should actually be asked that every number that they see on their networks, they should call the people and say, well, if we don't get it, we don't see you in the system, we're blocking the number. That ends it.
Okay. Point well made. And before I get to Sydney, so that Sydney puts everything together, and then we move on to PDS. This week, Honorable Casely-Hayford has written a letter to GRA saying that he is giving them 14 days to present all records of proceeds from Kelny GVG.
Populist.
No. It's
populist.
He stated the law.
It's populist.
But he stated the
I'm
law.
telling you, it's populist.
Okay, I'll get to you.
Frankly. Are you not aware it's populist? He's not a member of parliament.
Why?
Why doesn't he file a question on the floor?
Does it deviate from his
He
right
is
to
just
right?
being populist. That's it.
He's a ranking member of finance.
So file a question.
Wrong?
But is it wrong?
It's
not
populism.
It's not
Pure and
it's not
simple.
wrong.
Oh, please.
I was asked the question.
Frankly,
Let's want you to answer the question.
That's what I realized. But you get your bite.
yeah, so Franklin, go on. And I will put the story on my screen. Just so that it becomes more popular.
I think I still wanted to.
Yeah, he says release data. Oh, so you guys, you're watching. Release data on County GVG within 14 days. Ato forced into GRA.
I think Ato wanted to honor the GRA, actually, by asking the GRA to do its known, should I say, to perform its task.
Franklin, if you permit me, let me just read a bit of the story. He says, Mr. Forson expects that information on the implementation of the project should be informing national policy and lead to a revision of monitoring and auditing mechanisms deployed by GRA, quote, based on these two concerns and in pursuance of Article 21F of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, I will kindly request that your office furnishes my office with all the detailed reports, if any, submitted by Messrs. Kelny GVG in this regard. He also said he was particularly interested in knowing if the exercise has resulted in any significant revenue increase for government to warrant such huge payments to Messrs. Kelny GVG. Considering the projected additional tax revenue from the 3% increase in CST of 190 million Ghana cedis, one wonders if the Kelny GVG project is discontinued, there wouldn't be enough savings to reduce the magnitude of increase in the CST to lessen the burden on the citizenry. So, Honorable Casely-Hayford Forson writing to the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Revenue Authority this week. 14 days.
14 days starting from when?
Starting from the day he sent the letter, which was 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yes.
So we have to remind ourselves to count down the 14 days.
Okay.
And if he doesn't receive the response from GRA in 14 days, we have to ask him what he intends to do.
Okay, we'll get there.
Yes.
Yeah, because people just come and make these kind of statements, and then
But that's why I told you.
and then they just leave it.
Oh.
And then you don't. There's no follow up. Nobody knows what happens. The thing just
He
sits
is the
there.
ranking
I'm
member of
tired
the
of
Finance
it.
Committee of Parliament.
Sydney is getting into his benediction. Let's hear Franklin on the matter.
Well, in one way or the other, I think some accounting would have to be done anyway. Don't forget the background to this whole brouhaha, which we have the inglorious, should I say, certificate for starting it, is that we needed to ascertain the revenues that the telcos were actually reporting. So I suspect, at the very least, it's a question that ought to be answered. And I think whether it's Ato who asked the question or anybody else who asked the question, I think it's important that at least there's some accounting so that it allays the fears of everybody else that, look, we were not just forking out some amount of money to an entity that says it was going to assure revenues. I think it's very important because, again, in the whole brouhaha, the ministry was quite emphatic. But they quoted certain figures that they were expecting on the revenues, in terms of revenues. So I think it's a harmless question, and I thought it ought to be answered. I mean, I can understand when Mr. says, Honorable Mr. says, it's populist. But I think that's what politicians do anyway, don't they? Even when they are being genuine, it's populist. When they are not being genuine, it's also populist.
Frankly, don't get me wrong.
I know.
Then I come to you.
I'm
not
saying
saying
that for the ranking member of the Finance Committee of
They
Parliament,
should have asked it in Parliament.
ask formally.
No.
So that the minister
It
can
doesn't
come.
derogate from his right to write to the minister.
But
Under
the
Article
mode
20
that he used is populist.
No, it's not
That's
populist.
the point.
No. Article 21
Being
1F.
populist is not a crime.
No, it's not. I haven't said so.
So,
But you're making
but
it
it's
sound like
important.
you're
It's important
sounding
that
like
we
as
all
if there's
understand.
something wrong with
Now, first of all, Article 21 1F is the basis for our freedom to right to information
Yeah.
law. that the implementation of the law has been suspended till January 7th.
Yeah.
That so Atu cannot come under that. That would have been the easiest. In fact, writing under that law, if the law comes into effect, a refusal by GRA to make the information available will constitute a crime. And so now to answer your question, if they don't respond within 14 days, he has to go to court because there's no legal framework. Now, but it's important that we marry what my good brother has said with what Atu has written. The justification for Kelly GVG is that we are thinking that by instituting that mechanism, we are going to get an increase in revenue.
Or saving,
Or saving.
We'll be saving some
revenue. So you need to do a cost-benefit analysis, even without the letter. All of us must be interested.
But Inusah, why should you think that you will get any report when you didn't get one for Suba?
Well, I'm not talking about Suba, am I?
No, it's the same thing. we just morphed from the Suba ideals into Kelly GVG issues.
Yes.
But we never got a report from GRA on Suba. Neither did we get one.
But we didn't have an MP write to the GRA for Suba.
You don't need to write.
But what I'm just saying is that
to be transparent.
What I'm saying is that you can start from any point. We have started from this point, and I think that is
convenient.
It's a convenient point to start. I mean, there must be a starting point. There must be a starting point for anything. And if Sydney says convenient point, I take it that this is the most convenient point to start.
The point is that Suba, because of the fact that Suba wasn't really reporting, which was the narrative,
yes,
and that there's a newer version that is supposed to cure the Suba ills. It's actually important that we know.
We know.
But I think it's also important that Sydney says that why you are coming to he who comes to he who what do we
Sydney,
say?
He who comes to equity must come with clean hands.
Well, we are coming with clean hands.
Sydney, wrap up the conversation on the communications sector, and then we will go to PDS because we've been waiting for some information. It's not coming, but this week it has brought itself. And Honorable Mercer is here, so he will answer a lot of questions for us.
You know why he's here? In what capacity? I'll say what?
Well, he's well versed in PDS matters.
Okay.
All right, so we are going to so we
I don't even know what we are talking about.
We've got the communication services tax issue, and then we've got the re-registration
yes.
matter. Look, CST, I think that we have diverted the discussion from the real issue. Whether we have an NDC government or a MPP government, whether it be a PPP government or a Kwiadonko's government, whichever way you do it, government will collect the taxes. They need taxes. After all, what taxes did we not see in the NDC era? Financial services tax, condom tax, machete tax, anything they could think of where they could get some revenue, pocket some revenue, they had to do it.
And I would tax water.
Well, to some extent we did, because we increased the taxes on sachet water at one point. But the crux of the matter is that whichever way we play it, the government will need the taxes to be able to develop what it sees as the infrastructure of the country. If you are to implement a free senior high school policy, you have to figure out where the money is going to come from. Whether you like it or not, it has to come from somewhere. Mm-hmm. And if you've decided that you're not going to be borrowing money and you're not going to be taking aid to support such programs, then you've got to get creative with the money. Unfortunately, I don't think the government anticipated the way the telcos would implement the taxes, because up until now, the taxes were hidden from us as citizens. So it was being paid on our blind side, but we were still paying it. So now it has happened this way. But you see, here is my big problem with these telcos and these IT superheroes, also supermen or superwomen. You know, I don't know how much talk time do you get for 10 cedis of purchase. Does anybody know that when you buy 10 cedis worth of talk time, how many minutes do you get? I've never seen that number quantified before. All I know is that when I buy it, I get a notice that tells me that my talk time will last until November 2020 or something like that before I lose the credit. And I've never bothered to find out exactly how much I get per minute of purchase. You see?
That's important.
And how do they make that calculation? Because the cost of the service is based on that. Telcos are saying to you, I'm giving you time to talk on my system. I've put in a system. And when you pay me, I allow you to talk for so long. So that is the service they are selling. That is the service they are selling. They are selling time. Mm-hmm. Now, if, as the analysis shows, I think Imani has done some, other persons have done some. If you compare what we are paying in Ghana to what it costs in South Africa and Kenya and our other African countries, our costs are much, much higher. It costs much, much more in Ghana to make a call than it costs to make a call in Nigeria. So I ask myself, it's the same company. It's MTN, it's Airtel, it's Vodafone. But how come in Ghana it costs us more? Is it because we are more inefficient? Is it because we carry more overhead? What is it that makes ours more expensive? Okay? So somewhere there along the line, somebody is profiteering. If the same company is within the whole Africa continent, and yet in Ghana, he's charging me more than he's charging in Nigeria.
The Sydney is the tax component.
Well, the tax component is there, but there's also I suspect the way the whole infrastructure is built. All right, and their attempt to recoup their investment, because there must be a certain amount of investment to be recouped as we go forward. Then, of course, there's the cost of the license. Okay?
Licensing regimes.
The licensing regimes are different. But I would think that if the telcos really wanted to make more revenues, then rather than do maybe I'm assuming that they are overtly public service focused, that they would say, okay, look, there's going to be a 3% additional tax on the service, but in order for you not to feel the pinch, you are cherished consumers. You know how the people like cherished. As for us, we cherish everybody who listens to us. We will give you extra talking time to compensate. But then that would be because the government maybe owns a particular stake or has a very good relationship with the telcos. Because frankly, I don't think it will cost them anything if they gave us an additional 1 minute or 2 minutes of talk time in order to compensate and cushion for the additional costs that we are incurring. But anyway, that's dreaming. I think that is idealistic, and I don't think it would happen. But the bottom line is, look at this thing from the point of view of a government that needs to raise revenue in order to be able to develop programs. It is not so much that we are paying the taxes. It is more to do with what the taxes are used for, which is the critical decision point. So if you collect all of this money and we don't see anything for it, then of course we the citizens get angry. But if it doesn't work that way, and we can see development, we can see improvement, we can see our lives getting better, we tend to say, okay, we are collecting the taxes, but hey, it doesn't matter. Look, there are countries in the rest of the world where the taxes are much, much higher. All right? In some of the Scandinavian countries, I can't remember whether it's Sweden or Norway or somewhere, they pay nearly 70% of all their income in taxes.
I don't know if now, even in Burkina Faso, taxes were very high some time ago. Yeah.
Yes. But,
Taxes were very high.
but people don't complain because the services are there. With all the taxes that are collected, you get the benefits of it in many, many, many ways. So I think that as society, when we see that we are getting quid pro quo for what we are paying for,
That's the
we
way
are
that's in
content.
vogue in the past few days.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Okay? So,
With,
whether we like it or
impeachment
not, whether we prepay the tax or we postpay the tax, we will be taxed. And all we need to do is to keep putting pressure on government to use the money in the best way possible, so we can see that our lives improve.
Okay.
That's it.
That's all.
Point well made. Thank you very much.
We are not part two.
But
No,
it's
my,
not-
Re-registration.
your time has run out.
No, let me say this on re-registration.
You have 1 minute.
I'll do it in less than a minute if it's possible. I think the government should take the opportunity to utilize all the things that they have put in place. Re-register the SIM cards, but insist that before you re-register, you must have your house number and you must have
Your
your
TIN.
GPS code.
A national
All
ID
right.
card.
National ID card if you have one,
Or
or
a
maybe
TIN.
your TIN if you have one. But I think that national ID card, because it's still being rolled out, is not
And the
completed,
NDC is
it will
not
be unfair.
participating.
All right? So you need to get a TIN, you need to get your GPS code, and you need to get your house number. These three things should be a criteria for registering your SIM, so that we tie all of them in at the same time. And then when you go to do your national ID, it should automatically hook. Because if the intention is really to fight cybercrime, it's all about identifying people when they use a particular electronic device. That will solve the problem.
It's not easy.
Thank you very much, Sydney Casely-Hayford.
It's
He's
easy.
done that in 45 seconds.
There you
He
go.
could almost run the 400 meters.
The people who want
Okay,
to
so
commit crimes
moving on from that conversation,
know that
let's talk
this registered
PDS business now. And this week, that was in the middle of the week, I think Wednesday or Thursday, the NDC came out and said that they will not rest in their bid to unravel the rationale behind government's plan to hand over 30% shares in the power distribution industry to a new company called Meridian Power Ventures Limited, registered out of Hong Kong. They organized a press conference, and this is what they had to say. After that, you also hear from the Energy Minister, Mr. John Peter Amewu, who says that government has even though government has a contract with the Power Distribution Services, which is PDS, it cannot control deals among members of the consortium that make up PDS. Now, according to him, the government is in a shareholding arrangement with PDS, so if the shareholding structure changes at any point in time, that is out of government's control.
Addressing the press, the General Secretary of the NDC, Johnson Esedun Ketia, said the party unearthed this new deal between the government and the company from Hong Kong after citing a letter written by Meridian Power Ventures to the chairperson of the Millennium Development Authority, MIDA, Professor Ya Intiamwa Beidu, for a special board meeting.
Namely, Meridian Power Ventures Limited, which owns 30% shareholdings, and Energia, which owns 19% shareholdings, have called for an urgent special board meeting of PDS on October 18, 2019, to tackle the issues affecting 1. The suspension of the PDS concession, 2. Resolution of the issue on the demand guarantee, and 3. Corporate governance and management processes. And so we are calling on government, whether tomorrow's meeting takes place or not, we are calling on government to come out, because there are very serious constitutional issues that have been raised in this matter. How come Parliament was dealing with Mercer and have signed agreement with Mercer of Manila? That is the company we know owns our 30%. And then all those 30% shares gets transferred to another company registered in Hong Kong. And the bad thing is that when you check the background of this Meridian Power Ventures registered in Hong Kong, it was registered even after the tendering processes for this whole concession. So what are we doing? Who are the owners of these Meridian Ventures? Government should come and tell us who the owners are.
Meanwhile, a former Deputy Minister of Energy, John Jinapor, has issued a 24-hour ultimatum to the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to explain the rationale behind plans by government to restructure the power deal.
Who are the owners of these two companies? And how can a company and a consortium that own less majority stake in a consortium decide that they want to restructure it, they want to sack the local partners, and they rather want to deal with the government of Ghana? How can you accuse a consortium of being fraudulent and yet pick just members of that consortium who are foreigners and attempt to work with them? We told you that Amewu had led a 22-member delegation to Manila. We know the hotel he slept in. We know the floor he slept in. And we know the room he slept in. We have details of that meeting, ostensibly to sack the Ghanaian partners and yet keep the foreign partners. And like General has said, we'll continue to support the General, we'll continue to support the party. We will serve Ghana and ensure that the right thing is done at the end of the day. And we challenge the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, who has been spearheading this whole concession and trying to restructure the agreement and trying to restructure the shareholding. We give him 24 hours to come and explain this matter before us. Other than that, we shall use whatever legitimate means to seek.
So you heard the General Secretary of the NDC, Mr. Johnson Esiedu Nketia, also heard a former Deputy Energy Minister, Mr. John Jinapor. Well, the Honorable, he's a member of Parliament, so the Honorable John Jinapor. And after that, they gave out some documents that they purport was addressed to the PDS board. I cannot really verify it, so I'm not really going to go into details with that. But I was going to start this conversation with Honorable Mercer, but let me go to the NDC Member of Parliament here, since they are the ones who have brought this to the fore. And then I'll come and ask my questions of Honorable Mercer. Where is this coming from? What is your concern?
Well, first of all, we must understand that dealing with ECG by any company, and especially by government, should be a matter of interest to any Ghanaian. Because ECG is a national asset. It's the property of the Republic of Ghana. And the Republic of Ghana is constituted by people who are the citizens of the Republic of Ghana. So ECG belongs to the citizens of the Republic of Ghana. That's what we must know. And we must also know that at any time at all that government proposes to act, government acts as an agent of the people, not the owner of the property. So the people reserve a right at any time to demand to know how their resources is being used. It's part of the principles of transparency and accountability. And no one can take it away from us. Now, coming back to PDS, we all know the genesis of the story of the, if you want, the privatization of ECG.
Yeah.
And the $498.9 million from the MCC.
Yeah.
And we know of the processes that led to the selection of PDS. And how the PDS was constituted by companies who held shares in them. We all know.
Yes.
Now, because ECG is a national asset, that agreement, and government being an agent of the people, whatever agreement that the government enters into with a company for the purposes of dealing, or if you want, privatizing ECG, that agreement must receive a ratification from Parliament.
Okay.
Ratification means that Parliament must give its stamp of approval on the terms and conditions under which that agreement has been entered into. And that is where the beginning of the problem is. Now, I've heard people say, if PDS was constituted by shareholders, and then the shareholders decide to transfer their shares in the arrangement to another company, they should have a right to do so.
Well, that is what the energy minister is saying.
Well, I'm saying that they should have a right to do so, subject to approval by Parliament. Because you see, the property ECG remains our property. And we must choose the people we want to trade with. It's even common, it's a practice in common law. And it's a practice that is looked upon favorably, even in dealing in the private sector, that you choose the people you want to be your partners. It's not any new principle that we are advocating. Now, what agreement did Parliament ratify? When Parliament was called upon to give its stamp of approval, two companies had a 49% shares in PDS. Meralco,
Which is Manila something.
that's the national company, power distribution company of Philippines. Okay? And in Niger. Even there are questions about in Niger, but I'm not going into it now.
Okay.
And then a consortium of Ghanaian companies that made up the 51% shareholding. This is the agreement that we signed. This is the ratification that Parliament gave. Now, I don't know whether we are seeking to suggest that after Parliament ratifies an agreement, that is just for the purposes of meeting the constitutional injunct that calls on Parliament to ratify foreign agreement? Or has it got legal consequences? Can one, and the legal consequences should arise from, can one vary a ratification of Parliament with a recourse to Parliament? Is it possible? For instance,
Honorable Mercer, take your notes.
Yeah, for instance, if Miracle held 30% shares in the PDS as constituted, can Miracle transfer the 30%, which was ratified by Parliament, to a new company with a recourse to Parliament? I hold the view that that cannot happen. Because in that case, Miracle would be choosing a partner for Ghana with a recourse to Ghana. When I say Ghana, I don't mean the government of Ghana. You see, holding government accountable is the reason why Parliament is in existence. Because government is not constituted by angels. It's constituted by humans. This morning you've heard my friend talk about vested interest. Because of issues of vested interest, Parliament exists to ensure that the vested interests of persons who constitute government do not operate to undermine the national interest of the country. And that's why Parliament exists. Okay? Now, so we saw this letter. that the two companies were calling for a special
Board meeting.
Did
it happen?
Well, I don't know. But
you chased hotels, chased letters, but didn't chase the board meeting itself?
Well, I don't know. We drew attention to it.
You cannot tell us that when you're telling me that Parliament's job is to check and do what, and the people are organizing the board meeting, you didn't check?
You are not telling me to get a truncheon or a baton and go and stand at the gate of a hotel and ensure that people who come in show their identity.
The press, your people said that they even knew the room in which Mr. Amewu went to sleep during his trip to Manila last week.
Now, I have even heard, and I'm not surprised, I'm not surprised that a company like Meridian is coming up, because I was reading the foreign news. And the Mercer had represented to a foreign group that its engagement in Ghana was being reconsidered. And probably they didn't have. And Ghana is their first foreign experience. Experience outside Europe. This is their first experience in Africa. And probably they've gotten it wrong. The chief executive made those pronouncements to a foreign group of people who were, like investors. Okay? And that Ghana was becoming a political risk. And they were looking at the possibility of getting up. So I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all that a Meridian has appeared. Because if I tie what I read about what the CEO of Mercer said at that meeting with what the letter I'm saying, I'm not surprised. My surprise is that why do we allow this to happen with the recourse to Parliament, on the blunt side of Parliament? Why do we allow it? And now I've seen, even on the 27th day of March 2019, the Minister of Finance wrote a letter to Akoto Boafo, the chairman of the government negotiation committee, to consolidate the shares of the local partners, invest the shares in a special purpose vehicle. Okay, again, without recourse to Parliament. And again, in that letter that is the subject matter of the discussion, the letter is saying that the company wants to discuss, among other things, the demand guarantee. So it means that the issue of the defective demand guarantee is still existing. It has not been remedied yet. So what are the guarantees posted for ECG? Okay? And so for us as in NDC, this is an agreement. And in that letter to the chairman, the people are stating emphatically that the PDS concession has been suspended. The issue was to consider the suspension of the PDS agreement. But we all know that as we sit today, PDS is still in charge of collecting the revenues. So on the basis of what are they collecting the revenues?
Okay.
On the basis of what? So you see, this whole thing is so murky, so fraught with confusion, so unethical, that we calling on government to look at the whole agreement and cancel same. You see, in law we have what we call mitigation of what? You know it. Mitigation of loss. That is better we take steps to mitigate our loss now than to wait until it's too late.
Okay. Honorable Inusah Fuseini, Member of Parliament for Tamale Central. I'll take a quick break. When we return, you will hear from Mr. John Peter Amewu, and then you will hear from Honorable Andrew Mercer, Member of Parliament for Sekondi. The Big Issue will be right back.
This is a parliamentary memo that came to Parliament. The Deputy Minister then, was tapped, and they all discussed this. The company in question, which they're talking about, is the SPV of Miracle. It's not a new company, which holds the 30% share. amount equivalent to about 600,000 units. So I was at a loss when they came out again with the explanation that government is trying to restructure the shareholding agreement. What is important is that government has no direct agreement with the shareholders. There is a shareholders agreement that is separate from the agreement we have with the company. And the company government is dealing with through ECG is the PDS. And so if there is a need for any shareholding restructuring, government will not have anything to do. That would have to be done within the members themselves that constitute the shareholding agreement. So the company in question that they are talking about, which is the Meridian Power Ventures, if I'm right, this is the SPV for Miracle. It's not a new company. I can't understand why the minority cannot take their time just to, examine this simple thing. I was surprised who misled General Ketia to come on air and say that we need to prove giving government 24 hours. Giving government 24 hours to tell you the document that came before Parliament, and this thing was well felt in it. I think I'm at a loss. 30 and 19% respectively, and which the foreign companies collectively having 19 plus 30, which is 49%. The local companies having the 51%. Now Miracle has a mother company, let me say, which is the SPV of Miracle. The shareholding of Miracle is in Meridian. And so Meridian company is the one they saw now saying that government is trying to bring in a new company, which was totally false. It is already there.
So that was the Energy Minister, Mr. John Peter Amewu. For those of you who are listening to us as well, you know that the EPL is about to start. So that will be happening on 97.3 City FM. But staying with the main conversation here, let me just repeat, you heard the Energy Minister trying to explain the role of this Meridian Power Ventures Limited, saying that it is not new. They are the SPV, the special purpose vehicle that is used by Miracle in its dealings, and so it's not a strange company. Honorable Mercer, let me come to you. How did the NDC's press conference on this matter come to you? Were you surprised by it? This mention of Meridian Power Ventures Limited and this accusation that some obfuscation had taken place?
I was amazed, but not entirely surprised.
Hey.
Because increasingly they are changing their name from National Democratic Congress to National Disinformation Congress. And I just checked the definition of disinformation online. False information which is intended to mislead.
What is false about what they said?
Have you read the letter that they put out? The basis of the allegation that the government of the Republic of Ghana is intended on state capture, and that they have gotten the external shareholders to transfer their interest into a new company called Meridian Power. You heard them? No, I'm asking you a question.
Is it true or not?
It's a complete falsehood.
So who are these Meridian Power Ventures Limited? Where are they coming from? You are in Parliament. You look at the agreements.
Don't worry. Just give me a little bit of time.
You have time.
Because you see, they've kept changing the goalpost right from day one in respect of this PDS matter. This is the so-called letter that they say they chanced upon or intercepted. Dated 14th October. I'll read the first paragraph and the third paragraph, and we'll see the import.
Okay.
And determine whether indeed any text in this letter suggests what the NDC ought to put out to the public. That government, led by the finance minister, was engaged in an activity to introduce a new company into the picture. I'll show you some documents.
Oh, okay. I like documents.
Dear Honorable Chairperson Ntiamwa Bedu, please be informed that the foreign shareholders of PDS Consortium, namely Meridian Power Ventures Limited, Meridian, which owns 30% shareholding, and Energy, which owns 19% shareholding, have called for an urgent special board meeting of PDS on October 18, 2019, to tackle issues affecting 1. Suspension of the PDS concession. 2. Resolution of the issues on the demand guarantee. And 3. Corporate governance and management processes. I'll jump the second paragraph. Third one. We would like to give you our assurance that we shall act with dispatch to immediately resolve and address these issues in the special board meeting that we called, for which we trust would enable the immediate restructuring of PDS board and management towards a more effective governance structure and management. Where is the suggestion in this letter that the government was seeking to introduce a new player?
This
But you see,
this
no, hold
letter
on.
is from, this letter is from who? To
That's
who?
the one that they put out. The NDC put out that it was signed by Meridian Power Ventures Limited and Anegia. Okay? These are the 2 foreign shareholders to the board chair of MIDA.
Well, their position was that
Hold on.
they don't know
I
Meridian
know their position.
and they don't know
Because, you see, they are either asleep on the job.
in Parliament.
Absolutely. Look, without even going further, just last 2 weeks, Joy FM reported when Miracle wrote to their stock exchange that because of the issue with the suspension, they were considering, if the suspension persists, pulling out of the transaction. Joy FM reported PDS suspension. Miracle wants to pull out of Ghana's power sector. And in the story, they said, PDS is a consortium between Miracle through Meridian Power Ventures Limited, 30%. Angola-based firm Anegia SA, 19%. And 3 Ghanaian firms, TG Energy, GTS Energy, and TBK Ghana Limited. Okay. Even Joy FM knew at the time that they did this publication that the vehicle that Miracle used in doing the PDS investment was Meridian.
Is this in parliamentary documentation?
Oh, hold on. Please, Godfred, just chill.
I'm chilling.
There is a presentation here. This is private sector participation in ECG. Briefing. Parliamentary Subcommittee on Mines and Energy and Finance. It was held at Movenpick Hotel, Accra. Presented by Martinez on Benjamin on July 11, 2018. Parliamentary.
Can I look at it?
I'll give
it back to you.
Oh,
just to verify before you
read. Please.
Okay, so it says what you said.
Thank you very much. Page 8 of that document lists the shareholding structure.
Okay.
It says item, shareholder name, nationality, SPV name, place of registration, number of shares, percentage holding. Item 3, Manila Electric Company Limited, nationality, Filipino, SPV name, Meridian Power Ventures, place of registration, Hong Kong, number of shares, 600,000, percentage shareholding, 30%. Today, the NDC is telling you and I that Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the president of this republic, through his Minister of Finance, is engaging in a state capture, and that they foresaw in 2018, when this Meridian company was incorporated in Hong Kong, that fast forward 2019, an issue will arise, and so let us incorporate a Meridian Ventures in Hong Kong. Since then, he gave some number of days that the incorporation took place before the execution of the concession agreement. Jenapo, he's a member of this committee. Nana Akufo-Addo foresaw that we're going to have problems, so he and his people incorporated a company in Hong Kong, and that now they are seeking in the state capture that they are alleging to transfer Miracle shares to Meridian Power Ventures.
I understand.
It turns out.
I'll let you go.
Hold on. These are serious matters.
I know, but I have a serious question.
It turns out, people of Ghana, the allegation of state capture, that has been their sing-song. Look, I have taken time to look into this PDS matter. Because bear in mind, I have been named as a shareholder of PDS. My very good friend here is a seasoned lawyer. They named me a shareholder. When in fact, the documents does not bear that out. Indeed, it's a fact that I'm a director of one of the Ghanaian companies that has equity in PDS. How did I become a director and a secretary? I incorporated a company for clients in July or June of 2014. Consistent with our work, our clients asked us, lawyer, be director for us, be secretary. I agreed. Now, that gentleman apparently went to, when subsequently they signed the compact, to look for foreign partners who had technical and financial capacity to come and participate in the concession. Ultimately, with all the issues that came up, they emerged as the preferred bidder because they were the only last man standing when others chose to leave. When the president decided that, look, managing ECG is not rocket science. Rather than give 80% to foreigners, I would give 51% to a group of Ghanaians. Let them partner with a foreign technical partner to manage it. So documents come to parliament and yes, a politician's name is included. Story changes all of a sudden. He holds the shares for and on behalf of Gabi Achidako, Kenneth Oforiata, Herald, front page stories. Are these the facts? Huh? They've gone round, they come back. Look, that letter that he referred to, that was written by Ken Oforiata to Akoto Boafo, has been explained. That look, indeed, PDS was not expected to win the bid. Because amongst all the companies that were evaluated, they were practically the weakest. It's a matter of fact. Except that they met the minimal eligibility criteria that was conducted by his party at the time they were in government. Okay? And so when everybody else decided to leave because the change in the structure did not make sense to them, what they indicated to the shareholders within the Ghanaian consortium is that, look, necessarily we ought to get this entity to remain Ghanaian. You may require fundraising. Put all your shares into one vehicle so that we ensure that at all times during the lifetime of the transaction, the Ghanaian block remains 51% Ghanaian. Doesn't make sense? Doesn't make sense. And they agreed. So the finance minister wrote to Akoto Boafo to actualize the discussions that had been held amongst them so that when the need arises for them to raise additional capital to meet their obligations under the concession. Bear in mind that under the concession agreement, the private sector player, which is PDS, was supposed to put in some $80 million per year for a 5-year period. They can use that vehicle to do the fundraising and ensure that still at all times the Ghanaian block remains 51. As opposed to they sitting individually 28, 18, 10. When there's a capital call and they have to go and do fundraising and they cannot raise it internally and have to go out, that may potentially change the nature of the shareholding. Rational structure. Yet what did they do? All sorts of name calling. But now the good people of this country have seen them.
The good people have asked me to ask
They
you a question.
have been exposed big time because they went to sleep. They didn't even read the document.
Honorable Mercer,
This simple presentation, they didn't read
Honorable
it.
Mercer.
And they come and sit here and tell us that Nana Akufo-Addo and his people want to introduce a new people into the transaction.
Let me ask a
Is it
question.
true?
Let me ask a question. Honorable
You
Mercer.
should be ashamed of yourselves.
You see,
Let me ask a question. Honorable Mercer, hold on.
This document you
Can I
are
ask a
holding
question now?
is not document.
Let me hold on.
Look, and I will come and deal with the issue about parliamentary approval
Which is
and all those
where I am
kinds of
going.
matters. What
You
are we
see,
talking
This
about?
document you are
Honorable
holding.
Inusah,
Just a
let me
minute.
ask my question.
Let's see
I'll
where-
get to you. Drop it. Let me ask my question. Honorable Mercer, allow me to ask you a question. I'm giving you, they said I should chill, so I chilled. So you chill for
Thank
me.
you very much.
Chill for me. They went to sleep. You've showed us. The point that they made was the document that appeared before them in Parliament had company ABC, had certain names in there. That is what they ratified in Parliament. They have not ratified SPV or whatever. So they know, hold on, so they know company A, company B, company C. My question is, you have seen the documents in Parliament. I'm sure he has seen the documents. None of us here have seen the parliamentary documents. Have we? No. Does the parliamentary documents that you signed, ratified, mention Meridian Power Ventures Limited?
You see, you can be disingenuous all you want.
I'm asking a question.
Hold on. Oh, please. I'm going to answer them
Okay.
appropriately.
Okay.
The parliamentary memo, the joint memo that came, okay, signed by the Honorable Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and the Energy Minister. Unfortunately, I couldn't get my copy because I think I left it in office. That, together with the concession agreement itself, said that the government of Ghana was going into the concession agreement. They gave the background of what it is that the compact sought to do, the various options that were available to government, management option, concession, and all the rest of it. And then the option that government of Ghana had elected to go with, and that they said that it was a Miracle-led consortium. Now, if Miracle-led consortium, they can't use a vehicle to do the investment. Is that what they are saying? Is that what they are saying? And the presentation that was made to the subcommittee clearly said that the entity that we are dealing with is Manila Electric Company. They are using a special purpose vehicle called Meridian Power Ventures to do the transaction. Is this Greek? This is English.
So is this attached
So what are they talking
to
about?
the documents on record in Parliament?
Where else would it be?
No, I'm saying this brief.
Where else would it be?
I'm just asking.
No, don't assume.
I'm
Don't
just
assume.
asking.
Don't assume. You are assuming that this briefing was attached to documents in Parliament. Don't assume.
You see, Inusah,
Don't assume. Don't
my
assume.
good friend. My
No,
good
no,
friend.
no, no,
Oh,
no.
you hold
It's
on.
okay.
Oh,
Let him talk. Let him flow.
If you,
I'll come to you.
Honorable Fuseini.
If you stray into the realm of
Honorable
assumption, I'll
Fuseini.
stop you.
But it
Don't
was a
assume.
briefing.
Wait,
it was
wait.
a-
Hold
it
on,
was
hold
a
on.
briefing- it was a
Cindy,
briefing
please,
to
you
the
spare me
subcommittee.
1 second. You and I, of course, you are way senior. This is my first time in Parliament. You know, as a matter of fact, that when documents are formally laid, committee meets the sponsors of the documents. They exchange additional information. Conversations are held before the report of the committee is prepared and presented to Parliament.
Plenary, yeah.
So what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Look, like Cindy suggested to you guys, eat humble pie. On this occasion, you goofed big time.
Point made. Let me go to Honorable Inusah. You have any comments on the matter?
Well-
Before I go to Sydney and Franklin.
I'm saying that the agreement that his name came out. How did your name come up? Your
I've
name
indicated
came out
you.
because no. Please. When you were speaking, I think that
Go on, no, he'll keep quiet for you.
I kept quiet for you to
He
speak.
will keep quiet for you. Don't worry.
because
His
that's
tea
what-
has
that-
arrived,
that's what
so
is- that's
he's
what is,
engaged.
required. When the documents arrived in Parliament, they showed the shareholding of PDS and NDC minority. Then did further investigation on the directors of the company, Ghanaian companies. That's how your name came up. It's not that anybody sat down and dreamt that you were a director. That's how, this is the first time even hearing that some people said you were a shareholder. Everybody knew you were a director because we had the documents. We had the documents. And then we knew that we're entering into an agreement in Parliament with Meralco. That's the document. And the shareholding structure was that Meralco will have 30%, Meralco will have 30%, and Niger will have 90%, and 3 Ghanaian companies.
Let me ask a technical question. What kind of bearing would a briefing like this have? Because, to be honest, somebody like Honorable Jinapo cannot tell us that he would not be aware of this. So it would be information that he would have in his head in any kind of engagement that he would make, would it not?
Well, I can't purport to be speaking
in your line of work. A briefing like this.
I can't purport to be speaking for Jinapo.
Okay.
But even looking at this document, I'm taken aback. Because this is the first time I'm hearing on this platform that the Meralco shares are being held by Meridian.
But he's saying that somebody. It should not be a surprise to somebody like.
As a member of Parliament, I have never heard on the floor of the House that Meralco shares are being held
by Meridian Power.
I've never heard.
Is that a problem?
And he's here.
Is that a problem?
Well, so if it is so, we should be surprised.
Well, you say you can be surprised, but somebody like John Jinapo should not be surprised.
I'm even surprised.
Because your surprise can be excused.
I don't know, maybe Mercer because he was connected with some of the companies that would have known. But I'm telling you that if you go and do a research in Parliament now, the agreement will rectify it. Never mentioned a special purpose vehicle.
But Inusah, your surprise doesn't obviate the facts of the matter.
God.
The fact stands that disclosure was made, and it is very clear in the document.
The fact stands that
it's
the
there.
fact that we have that he has presented
still chill
is saying that the subcommittee on energy and mines was briefed.
Yes.
I accept that fact.
Yes.
But that doesn't overcome my difficulty in saying that, look, the agreement that I know I ratified in Parliament, and that was in Parliament.
Yeah. But you see, we have to
I'll
debate. We have to debate this, or else
we don't have to debate it.
No,
Not
if
really.
we don't, we lose track. We lose track of the essence of what we are trying to
Don't
get
worry,
at. The fact of the matter is,
I want him to finish.
Meralco is made up of a consortium. That consortium includes Meridian Power.
No, that's what you're saying.
That's what the document says.
No, that's not what the document is saying. That's not what the document is saying. What the document is now revealing to us is that for the purposes of dealing in Ghana, Meralco.
Yes, it's represented by Meridian Power.
But doesn't mean that Meralco is a consortium or company including
No.
What he meant to say was that
PDS.
PDS is a consortium.
He didn't say
That's exactly what he meant to say.
Sidney can speak for himself.
Yeah, Sidney can speak for himself.
Okay, let's see this.
No, I wanted to say PDS, not Meralco. So PDS has its composition, and in that composition is Meridian Power, all right, which is in effect Meralco's agents in this instance. So whether procedure was done properly, whether the plenary in Parliament was briefed or not briefed, it doesn't obliterate the fact that Meridian Power is the joint venture vehicle for Meralco. It doesn't change it.
The joint venture vehicle for Meralco.
Yes, it's a special purpose vehicle for Meralco.
Okay.
It doesn't change. So whether we like it or not, that composition and that structure, that shareholding structure of Meralco is there. So whether plenary in Parliament, the floor of Parliament, knew or not, the committee, which is how Parliament works, was briefed fully and thoroughly, and it is truly documented. I didn't know that this was the situation, but it looks like as if it's clear in this instance. So maybe the NDC has been too hasty.
No.
Going out there to make this an issue when, frankly, it looks like as if you got it wrong.
No.
I think
I think maybe the point Sydney is making is that unless Mr. Jinapor was saying he wasn't present during this briefing.
The point I'm making is that, well,
even if he wasn't
I think that will be
even if
granted
he
the
wasn't
opportunity.
present during
Even
the
if he
meeting,
wasn't
it doesn't
present,
change the fact.
Even if he wasn't present,
It doesn't change the fact.
I agree. It doesn't change the fact that a subcommittee of parliament was briefed, and that from the documents that Mercer has presented, that a Miracle was presented as a company leading the process, but through a special purpose vehicle.
Special purpose vehicle.
Okay, it doesn't change the fact.
Yeah.
For me, as a member of parliament who was part of those who ratified the deal, I would still be interested to see whether this fact, and I'm surprised that Mercer did not bring the parliamentary ratification, I would be still interested in seeing whether this fact, as captured in the subcommittee briefing, was what appeared for the ratification.
I think the story would have
frankly, one quick point. Would the resolution that was passed in Parliament contain these details?
There's no about a resolution. I'm talking about
But
the
how was the
documents.
ratification given?
No. I'm talking. You don't pass you don't ratify
In any event,
you don't
the
pass
concession
you
agreement
don't pass a
that
parliamentary
Parliament-
ratification
Yes, it's
in a vacuum.
ratified by way of resolution.
No,
Then
you don't
have
even
a
do that
copy-
in a
you have
vacuum.
a copy of the concession agreement. Okay? Now, that document was executed between the government of Ghana
And Miracle.
and PDS.
And PDS, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, but who says no?
So
but who is PDS?
where Miracle?
But who is PDS?
You know the principle
No,
of
but who is
corporate
PDS?
PDS.
personality.
No, who is PDS?
PDS is a legal entity that is incorporated in Ghana.
About what?
Oh,
No, PDS is a legal entity for the purposes of the transaction.
yes.
But how is the PDS duly constituted?
Miracle.
Yes.
Energy
So when you are
and something.
When you are, my brother, as a lawyer, you know that when you are even incorporating, rectifying or representing PDS as a company, you will know. You will want to know who are PDS. You want to know.
Yeah, but
even with our politics, you want to know.
But that's your job.
Well, I
So
think-
I'm saying that if you decided to bring these briefing documents here, he who approves.
No,
you
no,
can't
no,
approve
no,
it
no,
and
no,
prove it.
no, no, Inusah.
You brought the- you
I've
brought
heard
the
from Franklin
document.
on
No,
this.
Inusah.
I've heard from Franklin.
Inusah, you're being
I
overly
think the story.
defensive.
You are not being overly
You're being overly defensive.
I'll hear from Franklin,
No,
then
you
we
have
move
to
on.
accept the
No,
fact
no,
that
no, no, not
the
overly
sub-
defensive.
I would think-
the
If
committee,
I'm confronted-
the committee was briefed.
You guys have
The
been
committee
talking
was
for a very
briefed.
long
The
time.
disclosure
Yes.
was made to the committee. The committee's job is to recommend to the floor that we have looked at it. This is what we have agreed to do. Parliament, go ahead and sign the agreement between Government of Ghana and PDS.
Yes.
And you duly did so.
We did so,
In
yes.
doing so, you are dependent or you are relying on
The committee's
the
report.
committee's report and
Yes.
integrity.
Yes.
So if there's any doubt
Yes.
as to whether anybody knows about this or not,
Yes.
you need to go to the committee's
Committee's report,
notes.
and then yes.
Yeah, the committee's notes and make sure
Yeah.
that within that
We have
adequate.
distance.
What about all documents that were given to the committee in order
Yes.
to come up to the
To this-
decision,
yeah, yeah.
the recommendation they made, fully contain enough information for you to determine
Yeah, sure.
that the special purpose vehicle
Because
that was used by Miracle was Meridian.
Yes,
and I think that,
absolutely, I agree with
and
you.
I think this is where your people did not do their
No,
homework.
no.
Bec-
Your
yeah, they did
conclusion
not
is
do their
not-
homework
okay.
because they
Your
got it
conclusion is
wrong.
not borne out by what you have said.
No, they got
so
it
it
wrong.
means that we have to
Let's
go and look
not
at
have-
the committee's report to Parliament.
Yes.
And then see whether the committee's report indicated in that report that Miracle's shares were being held, because that's what will be presented to Parliament.
Yes, and
Okay,
if you
Franklin,
didn't, and if
it
you
looks
came
to
up
me-
with
Franklin,
a statement
it
like
We
you
have
made,
just 4 minutes on this.
Then-
Let's hear Franklin on
It
this.
looks to me that this was sufficient expedition that didn't quite conclude.
it didn't catch the fish.
See, for me, what would have been the nadir or this whole conversation would have been if it was emphatically stated.
Frankly, what word is that? Nadia.
The center.
Ah, hey,
It's
it's like
photo-
this is
photo
like a,
interpretation.
it's like a segue.
NADIR.
It's like a segue.
Would have been for me if it was categorically stated that Miracle was not divesting its shares to some other entity. You see, the story is actually clear that Miracle has been entertaining thoughts about moving on.
Oh, yeah.
What you should have waited for was who, in moving on, what was going to be the dynamics, and how was the whole arrangement going to be, and who was now going to take up the 30% share.
But isn't that what they're saying? Isn't that what they're saying? What they're saying is that Morocco has actually offloaded the shares
to Meridian
and to Meridian,
and that is in federals of the Akufo-Addo state capture agenda,
which
is proving to be wrong.
It's not correct. That's what I'm saying, that the story would have been much better told if, as Morocco has already expressed interest in leaving the shores of this country, and has actually divested the shares to some other entity.
Mm-hmm.
And that entity would have been now put firmly in our sights, and then we can, interrogate. This obviously looks to me like some really poor work done. I think the NDC should go back and look into the matter, because this whole is feeding the narrative that they probably were not reading they're not following the conversations properly.
Mm-hmm.
So they should have waited to see what exactly Morocco would do, especially when, Honorable, you've read stories suggesting that they want to, because of political risk, they want to leave the shores of the country. And of course, the Joy FM story also indicates their willingness to leave the country. So I think it wasn't concluded. But you see, it's all because, again, of the whole cloud of suspicions around the entire PDS arrangement, which I suspect was what made them jump before they were actually pushed.
Okay, let me take a couple of messages, then we take a quick break, and then we'll go to the Upper East region. So, Samcon from Kofodia says the PR to the ministry was unable to defend the documents Honorable Mercer is showing yesterday. They should give us a break. Alasan Olamide says, hello, Godfred. I want to know who's currently managing the power sector, ECG, PDS, and he's congratulating Zoe Abubeidu. Okay. Somebody says, all this that Lawyer Mercer has is not true. The Ministry of Energy has just printed this document for their communicators to debunk the NDC press conference.
That's an NDC serial caller.
That is all that it is. And
let's just say he's right. So Nana Akufo-Addo and his government could foresee in the future that the problem will arise with the concession. So let them incorporate a company in Hong Kong in 2008. So that when the problem arises, they can transfer the shares from Morocco to that company.
All right. Then.
What a joke.
Send more messages. When we come back, we'll discuss the floods in the Upper East region. The big issue. Be right back. Welcome back to the big issue. We're entering the final phase of the conversation, and we're taking the conversation to the Upper East region, where there's been rather troubling developments. And this seems to happen every year when it rains. And now 5 districts in the region, Avrongo, Binduri, Kasina, Nankana, Busa South, and Busa North, have been hit by torrential rainfalls. Now, as at last official count, we had 20 reported dead, over 600 displaced, and over 1,000 houses have been destroyed. We were told that yesterday the NADMO, after struggling for days to collect relief items, were able to send 3 trucks to the... Well, they were in the process of sending the trucks. The trucks hopefully would have arrived by this time, but that is what they were trying to do, whilst they seek for further funding to alleviate this situation. So, Bobi Osei filed a report, and then we also spoke to the acting regional minister for the Upper East region, Fuseini.
The worst hit districts are the Busa North, Busa South, Kasina-Nankana Municipal, Kasina-Nankana West, and Binduri. Speaking to City News, Upper East Regional Coordinator of the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, Jerry Asamani Aladago, says his outfit is assessing the situation and working assiduously to provide relief items to the affected persons.
In fact, it's so pathetic, I would say, because we have moved from one community to another, and we are currently at Sirigu, where a woman lost her life as a result of the collapsed building. Looking at the situation, we want to call on all bodies concerned, because the relief that we have may not be enough to reach or cover all these areas, especially victims that are affected. Though we would move ahead as a first step to see how we can support, but we still need the support of government and the support of other NGOs, especially World Vision, Red Cross, and Action Aid, if they can come into support, and also benevolent organizations that think they can support us to give relief to victims of this disaster.
The issue of properties like houses, animals, so many properties has been destroyed as a result of the floods. Then also we have lost some people, but the figures that we initially people sent out, it is not the actual case. The numbers are not up to that. Given the fact that we are on the grounds and we are now getting the actuals. For example, if we take Castle-Hayford West, for example, yesterday they gave a figure of 11 people that were purported to be consumed by the disaster, that they were dead. But when we came onto the grounds, in actual fact, 2 people are dead, and then also 2 people injured, and they are receiving treatment.
So the report from the Upper East region, and I'll start this one from Honorable Inusah, who is not from that part of he's not from the Upper East, but he's familiar with the troubles this presents, because most of the time it happens in the northern regions as well. These rains that come, and from the reports we've been following, 2-3 days of rain, heavy rain followed by consistent small rain has done this kind of damage, and the help never seems to get there on time.
First of all, I think it's appropriate to extend our sympathies to the affected families in the Upper East region. I mean, and to invite us to understand exactly why the situation is so. Many people who are Trump-like don't believe in climate change, but this is exactly the cause of
Franklin is turning his neck.
Climate change issues. That the people are no longer able to predict when the rains will come.
Frankly, hold your horses.
People are against climate alarmism, not climate change.
Alarmism, yeah. Okay. But this one, we are alarmed by what has happened in the...
Through the change.
Through the change.
That's a good one.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
So, you see, in the Upper East region, Upper West region, Northern region, regions where poverty is rife and endemic. The people build their houses with mud, not concrete, mud. They don't add cement. Sometimes they just sand mixed with cow dung to hold the sand together. And no building can withstand the ferocity of the rain when it comes over a period of time. It will simply get soaked and collapse. So I have put down the problem to poverty, and that government policy must be, even though government policy is directed towards the creation of prosperity, because nobody wants to live in those houses. Those who have escaped poverty in those areas are living in better houses, houses that can withstand the elements when they do come. But it's poverty that have confined the people to live in those structures. And those structures will give way. Even in Accra here, if it rains consistently for the number of days that it has rained in Upper East region, some structures will give way because of the structural weakness. And so it's a problem. Most of them too Because they are poor, they are farmers. And so it's a double jeopardy sort of. Their crops are washed away, their houses are washed away, their belongings are washed away.
We did a story where they said some of them had even harvested, but the places where they had stored the food also washed away. So they've lost the food.
Everything. So it's quite serious. I mean, and this is why we have an organization like the National Disaster Management Organization, because disasters will occur.
Which always seems to lack resources.
Yeah, because we don't prioritize that. In other areas, what they do, or in other countries, what they do is that they are always disaster prepared. And when the disaster doesn't come, they then send it to countries like ours. They say, look, we are giving you aid. But so they always have a budget for disaster. They stock the places and ensure that when there's disaster, they can respond. Now, also, there ought to be a class of public-spirited persons in this country. I mean, we have seen what has happened in other countries. And I will take the Florida issue as an example, where citizens had to come together to intervene and provide shelter and clothing and food to people. And this is the time for us to show that level of public sympathy, public committedness to other people's plight and to intervene for the people of the Upper East region. Yes, I mean, it happens every year because of the way the rains come. Even in Accra here, where I live around Kwabinya, I mean, the rains just don't stop. But for the type of buildings that we live in, if you are living in those such poorly constructed buildings like Upper East region, it will definitely give way.
Thank you. And Honorable Mercer, this will hit quite close to home because you were not from there, but recently your constituency was also hard hit by this, and you had to bury 5 persons, I think.
Yes.
Some of whom you personally knew.
Absolutely. Isaac and his children. He himself was not at the location at the time, but his kids who had, because if you recall, they don't live together.
Yeah.
And so it was a very unfortunate scene. Of course, I share the grief of our brothers from the north who have had to endure this misfortune. I mean, I've always said that with our peculiar location, we are even lucky. Because if you look at what befell Japan
just
in the past
week
or so, God in his own wisdom situated at a place where we are not used to the kind of natural disasters that some of our brothers on the other side of the world face. But clearly, when it happens here, it takes a huge toll on the affected persons. I mean, my brother Inusah, when he was speaking, I was completely saddened that people have to live in homes. I know mud houses, but I didn't know that they had to use cow dung and
mix with the sand,
material to hold buildings together. I mean, it's completely unacceptable for us as a nation to look on. Unfortunately, we are not organized as a country where people aggregate in one location. Because if you go to China, you see all the villages that are scattered around, all the people being pulled into one place with affordable housing being provided for by the state. Yeah, every hamlet, every village, everybody is, is his own chief in his own corner. And unfortunately, because of the poverty levels, mud houses is what they reside in. It's not only in the north, across the country. When you go to Western region, in the Wasa area and all that, I mean, across, you see houses with thatched roof and mud being where people live. I think that as a people, we should find ways of, pulling our people together such that, because it really don't make economic sense for government, I guess, even if they have the resources to build affordable homes for people in every village across the length and breadth of this country. But I guess that if our fortunes improve and governments have the resources to build homes for people, pulling them together at relatively safer locations, which are demarcated by experts, will be the way to go. But obviously, this is a very difficult time for our brothers who have suffered this mishap, particularly those who have lost family members, and even those who survived their wares, their farm produce. So I will urge NADMO to do whatever it is that they can within the confines of the limited resources that we have. And yes, the point that Inusah made is very true. We live in a country where the buffer stock company, which ordinarily should be somewhat linked to NADMO, it's not the case. I think that we should relook at the structure of NADMO itself so that we can resource them adequately, with what they need. I mean, very recently there was a fire incident in my constituency. They had some supplies, but we had to go and buy some additional supplies from the market to support those who had lost their homes, and you begin to wonder, really, if it's a disaster relief organization, why don't they have all the resources that, is required to ensure that they meet the needs of our people? Well, we shouldn't play politics with this matter at all. I'm glad Inusah did not go there. We should collectively as a people begin to have the conversation as to how state institutions such as NADMO, is resourced adequately to meet our brothers who find themselves in situations like this.
Thank you very much. Franklin?
Well, I think again, commiserations to the families that have lost loved ones. Climate change is with us, has been with us since time immemorial. I think the countries that have done relatively better at adapting, and the word is adaptation, not necessarily alarmism. It's the fact that they've built for themselves economies that are able to withstand these things. I mean, it was a time when a typhoon occurred in Southeast Asia, countries that were low-lying, like Bangladesh, was completely buried. But a country like Thailand, which is relatively better economic-wise, because they had high-rise buildings and what have you, the impact was less. And I think the two honorable members have dealt with that aspect as well. That's one of the bulwarks we need to build against these kinds of occurrences. Somehow, is also the economic prosperity. And to the extent that can buy insurance against some of these unfortunate natural disasters. It cannot completely stop them, but it can lessen the pain. So I think we should do a lot more, and also be able to tell people in time. I mean, there's also an issue about warnings, which are also very important. And I think sometimes, as was discussed on your network during the week, you guys were saying, I think you were interviewing a gentleman who said there were warnings. Sometimes there are warnings, but these persons are usually not around. They've probably gone to the farms. So maybe early warning systems could help, but ultimately people should be able to move to safety grounds.
All right. Thank you, Sydney. You end this for me, and then I'll give you your regular GFA update.
Yes, good. Then let me do mine quickly. It's sad because this isn't beyond our capacity and our capability to do it. Whether we like it or not, natural disasters like this will happen. It's our ability to be able to rescue people when it happens and to rehabilitate them afterwards, which is what tells the story of our success in achieving this. I think it's time that the head of NADMO should not be a political appointment. We probably have to look at the whole appointment procedure, and the person who is put there must be a technocrat, a professional person who will look at building the disaster stock, if I could put it that way.
Yeah.
We need a lot of emergency things to be put in place. When you see some of the floods that happened worldwide in the more respected areas, you will see them with canoes and power boats and helicopters and stuff like that at their disposal. Doesn't mean NADMO should own them, but NADMO should be able to reach out to, say, maybe the police, the military, the Navy, and call on these service personnel when the time comes so they can use them. How do we stop all this? Well, our planning has to be that we have to think more of planning our living conditions and our dwellings in upland areas more than the low-lying areas which are prone to flood. But well, what can we do? We just have to get more efficient and better as a country to be able to, save all situations as best as we can. I didn't go anywhere yesterday because I got a warning alert from Meteo that there was a pending storm coming.
And there were
up.
reports that the rain had caused a bit of a problem on the Abri
area.
Yes, and it was quite heavy when it came down. For the period of time that it did, and of course it drizzled thereafter for a long time. But how do we get those alerts to everybody? In some countries, there's a hooter or something that tells you that this is happening, and maybe we have to do these things a lot better. I don't think it's a good enough reason to say that they didn't hear it because probably they were out on the farm. Why can't you hear it or see it when you're out on the farm? You should be able to know one way or the other. Well, a while back, you didn't even get a Meteo alert. Now we do get a Meteo alert. I think most of us do get a Meteo alert from WhatsApp. If not directly from Meteo services, it comes from people who share your platforms with you. So we do get to hear it. How we interpret it, I don't know, because I get mine, and I don't really understand
the language.
The language. I need a very simple statement. Tropical storm expected, 10 centimeters of rain to fall. That will tell me exactly what I need to avoid and not to avoid. Okay. So it's unfortunate that it should happen like this. And let's hope that we can avoid it going forward.
Okay.
Right, so Mercer said something about bringing the towns together. Probably that is what we should be looking at.
Get bigger communities.
So that you can move them uphill. But the upper east region and
flat,
part of northern region, upper west region, is such that people farm around their houses.
But a lot of Ghana is quite flat.
Yes, a lot of Ghana is quite flat, but people farm around their houses because of the nature of the soil. So that's why they stay at far places. That's their farm. Okay? And so probably, yes. And they want to get to where the soil is a bit fertile.
Yeah.
And so they farm in valley areas and they live in valley areas.
It's a problem.
It's a problem.
We have to find a way around it some way, somehow.
Right. So, Sydney, your regular update. So, the GFA elections have started. So, we have the 10 new regional FA chairmen. And this week is when the big boys will be voted for. So, that is the executive committee, executive council. That is what is going to be known. And then the president. So, big week ahead for you.
So, who won in the northern region?
So, in the northern region, let me just go through. So, in the upper east, Salif Uzida won. Robert Duncan won in the central region. Yaya Sadugu won in the upper west. Daniel Agboga won in the Volta. Ralph Jambra won in the Bono Alpha region. Abu Al Hassan, he's probably called Alaji Raizo.
Raizo, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so Alaji Raizo won in the northern region. In the western region, Simon Ahuma, he comes from the Nzima side, has a football team called Basake FC. So he won there. Samuel Abuabire won for Greater Accra, your area. He's probably known as Qatar. Very, very controversial man, but he's won. Osei Tutu Ajiman, he's the incumbent in the Ashanti region. He won again. And then
But then Ajiman?
Osei Tutu Ajiman.
Oh, okay.
He's popularly known as Kotoro. He won. And then Linford Asamoah won for the Eastern region. So they will come to Accra this week and come and vote as well in the election for the FA presidency. So that is your...
So that's a group that...
What is that story about Wachi?
Well, in the Ashanti region, there are allegations that one of the contestants, gave out Wachi to the delegates.
To the delegates.
Yes, it didn't work out.
He didn't win.
He didn't win.
You wouldn't have to eat before going to vote.
One of my
Keep your
patrons
energy levels. Keep your energy levels high. Yes.
for the regional election, but he lost Jamke.
Oh, Jamke, yes.
I was hoping he would win, but
yeah,
I guess.
I think eventually Jamke even stepped down. He didn't even contest.
No, he did. He was second. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
look, now that they have been elected, they shouldn't lose sight of the goal. The fact of the matter is, all of these regional elected executives have to be conscious of some very, very simple key performance indicators. Mm-hmm. We want to see coals development. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We want to see good community mini stadiums, so that the youth can actually go there and play on sensible grounds. We want to see the stadiums full. We want to see the pitches developed properly. Okay. So that, when people
I would have thought that would be the duty of the National Sports Council.
No, forget about that national sports thing. It's not working.
So how long now have we not been doing that? You got to,
and
the RFAs.
Yeah, bring it down. Bring it down to the level.
Actually, if we succeed in just developing the codes, they have done a lot for us. You see,
but they need them
I've always no, but it doesn't matter. You see, I've always said that our difficulty as a country in creating employment is that we're not exploiting those things, the sports, and providing a venue for people to show their talent.
And the entertainment.
And the entertainment. We're not. Everybody wants to go to the public service. But that cannot happen.
And I'm happy that the two of you are here. I hope you push, because when football is done and done properly, your two regions are two of the regions that
provided this. Yes.
You see,
the most powerful.
You see,
in that regard, the Western and the North.
The reason why
produce Abedipele.
Yeah, but the reason why I say your infrastructure has to work.
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want to be playing football on a pitch where the ball bounces and then it goes left instead of going straight. and you can't tell whether the ball is going east or west. Then people will come and say, hey, these people went to see a juju man. So when the ball bounces, they're called right.
Even the bigger problem is the pitches are no longer, all the pitches have been to real estate developers. But anyway, a big thank you to
that's what we need to do. We need to
Mercer.
Take it away from national, give it to private sector, let it develop at the district and municipal level.
And
let's
have just
get
a minute
done.
to wrap up. So, Honorable Andrew Mercer, Member of Parliament for Sekondi, Honorable Inusah Fuseini, Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Franklin Cudjoe, President of Imani Africa, and Sydney Casely-Hayford, who was just stealing my time to talk about privatization in the sports sector. We're my guest today. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. We'll be back next week. Show is back on air, replayed tomorrow, 10 a.m. Have a good weekend.